The Morning Majority on 630.
WMAL. 8:06 on a Monday morning in July. T-minus 8 days until August 2nd, when who knows what will happen. Brian Even, Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Wilson in the house this morning. Jim Pethokoukis, Jimmy P, joins us now. Reuters BreakingViews columnist, also with CNBC. Jimmy P, you've been following the story very closely. You've done a lot of breaking news on it, broken some stories on it. As of right now, which is now 8:07 on July 25th, where do we stand when it comes to a deal?
Listen, this is a very sensitive issue, so I want to be very discreet about this. I think we're at the gates of hell.
Don't hold back. Tell us what you really think.
Listen, there's two deals floating around. Democrats are cooking up one. Republicans are cooking up one. Neither one of those, I think, at the moment could get enough votes from the other fellows. So there's going to have to be some sort of merging of the two. My base case has always been that this is going to get settled. The White House, leaked a statement saying that they think there's only a 50-50 chance this thing gets done by next week, by the August 2nd deadline. I'm not really sure I buy that. I think that's just trying to add to the pressure of the situation. I still think it gets done, but boy, it's more. There's a little bit of wishful thinking in that. I'll admit.
All right. Do you think that it goes past August 2nd then? I mean, is that the White House wants to go past August 2nd? Who benefits the longer this thing goes?
Well, I think given the past history of the financial crises and government shutdowns, I think the White House thinks they would benefit. And if I was listening, I was going to be very cynical, long-time Washington person. I would say yes, they're trying to push a crisis so the president, whose approval ratings aren't doing well, can somehow turn this into a great turnaround for his presidential campaign. I would like really not to believe that. So for the moment, I'm certainly choosing not to believe that we would have a president who would instigate perhaps a financial crisis. So for now, I think it's just a differing view on some deep fundamental issues of where this country should be going as far as taxes and spending. All
right, the deal that fell apart on Friday when the president apparently came back to John Boehner and said, I'm going to need $400 billion more in new revenue. That was a big compromise deal. That was a grand bargain deal. Would Boehner have had enough votes from the Republicans to get that through?
That's a fascinating question because they seem like they had an agreement, but when I talk to, he might have. When I talk to like some of the Tea Party folks and the more conservative congressmen, they want all cuts to be real cuts. They want them to be sooner rather than later. They don't want messing with any kind of accounting gimmicks. I'm not sure even that plan would have had enough, but I think that plan actually could have got enough votes, I think, to pass out of the House.
Jimmy, I want to go back to something you said a moment ago, that as you look at the way things are evolving, if there's a Reid proposal, it's not going to be acceptable to some in the House. If there's a Boehner proposal, it's not going to be acceptable to many Democrats, especially over in the Senate. How do you resolve that, given the time frame that we have left? I mean, you're among those who say, they'll eventually, when it really gets down to it in the last seconds, they'll. But do you see that actually happening in the time that's left?
Well, what are sort of the red lines? The president says no short-term deal.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
That's a red line. Republicans, in their conference call yesterday, they said dollar of spending cuts. For every dollar of debt ceiling increase and no taxes. That seems to be Boehner's red lines. Some conservative Republicans have they want more than that. Someone's going to blink, and maybe what happens first is the financial markets blink.
That's what I'm wondering. I mean, does it get to the point where we see a precipitous drop in the Dow before somebody on Capitol Hill blinks and we move forward?
Right. I think that's a possibility because I know where we're at. I know where we need to get to, but it gets very murky on that path forward because at this point there doesn't seem to be any room for compromise unless someone gives up one of those positions. I think it's really I think the Democrats might give on that short-term issue, but Obama's made such a point of it. I mean, he told Eric Cantor that he doesn't care if it costs him his presidency. You know, he will not go for a short-term deal. That's pretty tough to walk back from.
Yeah, I don't think any of Obama's red lines count as red lines. Yeah. He'll just come out in another conference and say, "Oh, on second thought, there's a lot of things on the table I'm willing to listen to." But why have the markets been fairly chill up to this point? Or they're just counting on this getting done, a deal getting done?
No, they've absolutely assumed that it has to get done because the consequences are potentially not so nice. That's much easier, of course, to believe in that. But yeah, that's when I talk to Wall Street folks and when they're putting out their analysis, that's always the base assumption that it's highly unlikely, kind of like 5% or less that this deal doesn't get done. So I think that may be slowly starting to shift, and maybe it'll shift tomorrow, but so far so good today.
Jim, what does this Barclays note mean that said, well, maybe it's August 10th? Did you see that reported on CNBC?
Yeah. People are trying to come up with various deadlines. What's the real deadline for when the Treasury doesn't have enough money? Part of it has to do with at what point will they have so little money that they have to start cutting, not paying for things.
Right.
They will always have enough money to pay the debt interest. I don't think that's an issue. Again, to me, it's a government shutdown issue, not a default issue. Though I think we're probably going to get a downgrade. I'd say there's certainly a more likely than not we're going to get a credit rating downgrade no matter what happens here.
All right, so we're here at the same spot we've been for a couple of months. The president said he doesn't want to do a short term, but I agree with Mary Catherine that if it actually got to his desk, he would be forced to sign it.
Very hard.
It'd be hard for him to not sign any deal that actually got to his desk.
That's right.
Because
I think yeah.
Because then that would be a bipartisan bill. Anything that gets through the Senate has to be considered bipartisan.
And I seriously doubt that. Certainly, Harry Reid is going to try to avoid any situation where the president's going to get a bill that he really doesn't want to sign.
Right.
But it does take 60 votes at this point to get anything done in the Senate. There's a lot of Democratic senators up for re-election, 23 of them. 13 join 47 Republicans. I suppose that's a possibility. But again, I'm sure everyone will be watching the CNBC and the tickers very closely.
All right, but for people to say that there's no room for compromise, it seems to me that there is room for compromise because there was a deal that was there on Friday, or at least was in the making, and it was the line in the sand was either $800 billion or $700 billion of new revenue. Now, whatever new revenue means, I don't know. Does that mean new taxes?
I don't think it did mean new taxes, but Democrats wanted it. But Democrats hated that. Because it didn't have any tax increases, so they pushed Obama on that, and he came back with $400 billion, which put the whammy on the whole deal.
Is it perhaps?
There's so many ways these deals can fall apart, and that's what's happened so far.
But it seemed that Speaker Boehner thought that he might be able to get that passed. He might get his people to be able to swallow that, and if the president can just say, you know what, fine, we'll stick to 700 or 800. I don't need that 400 billion of new revenue, and I'll sign it. If the president would come out and say that, then you have a deal.
No, I think a situation like that is potentially a deal. I think a deal like that is much more likely to get votes than what Harry Reid is coming up with, which is a $2.7 trillion spending cut deal, over $1 trillion of which is a pure accounting, sleight of hand.
Yeah, there's nothing with Medicare, nothing with Medicaid, and it assumes that we're getting out of Iraq and Afghanistan tomorrow.
That's right. Which it's okay to assume that, but you don't want that to sort of be the core of your cuts, right? To be that.
All right.
We are indeed, Jimmy, at the gates of hell. You're absolutely right.
Literally flaming
Team doomed
gates
over
of
here.
hell. I don't want to alarm anybody.
So, run for your lives. We're at the gates of hell.
See, I believe that because I believe you tweeted this weekend that you like the Winnie the Pooh movie. See, to me, that's the gates of hell. If we're saying Winnie the Pooh.
You are very wrong about that, sir. That is a great film.
That was really a good movie, huh?
Yes, I was being absolutely serious. I've seen all the big blockbusters this summer. I easily enjoyed that one the most.
All right, so I'll take that and I'll put that in my back pocket and take it to the movie theater tomorrow.
Hey, I'm a softie at heart.
I guess so. I guess so. All right, enjoy the Gates of Hell later today, Jimmy.
All right,
we'll be watching. Jim Pethokoukis of Reuters, also of CNN.